So it is now recording, and there's a little thing counter here that says viewers, so we can also see if people can watch this live. So some people might be a little not be wanting to be public, but they can watch it and comment. And do you have that too down at the bottom? It says viewers, or is it just here as a host? Maybe I'm just seeing that. So we have 0 viewers at the moment. And last week we had 3 viewers, so that was. And the video from last week has had over 70 views so far. So people do watch these. Yeah, that's right. They do watch these. Let's see. And also, just from technical, I see that everybody's already kind of muting yourself, so you've kind of got that part down just in case there's background stuff. So let's see. So I was thinking we could just start maybe with our maybe a minute of just mindful meditation, just to collect ourselves. Just take a deep breath. Kind of relax, and even close your eyes if you're comfortable with doing that. And just feel into your body. Feel the different sensations there. Find it helpful to just settle on the breath for a little while, and we'll just be quiet for a couple minutes. And slowly focusing on your breath, take a couple of deep breaths, and let's slowly come back, open our eyes and come back to the group, to the circle. Okay, looks like we lost Deborah. Hopefully she'll find her way back. So what I wanted to do next was go into our intentions for being here, and my intention, the overall intention, is to foster, or really to address, the empathy deficit in the world and to build a movement, an activist movement to address that deficit, and build an Occupy Empathy movement, or whatever we want to call it. To really be more activist and bold with our empathy, getting it out into society more. So perhaps we could go around and hear everyone else's intention. Karen, would you like to start, or do you want to start?
Sure. Thanks, Edwin. I've actually had a couple of conversations with friends who really resonate with this idea of bringing the masculine and the feminine of empathy together. That's what emerged as a partnering of the soft and the safe container that empathy can provide for real authentic sharing, and on the other hand, the sort of courage that it takes to really drop into very honest expression, sometimes very raw and powerful expression too. So when I hear you use the word activist, and we reflected on that actually, and we came up with the word actionism because we were really keen to move away from what we saw as the aggressive nature of where activism has come from, and move something towards a new paradigm of actionism, which has this sense of the balancing of the masculine and feminine and the balancing of our intentions to deeply connect and walk in our truth. So just to let you know, that's really been a life for me. That's why I resonate with this group so much. Yeah, and I'm holding some strategies around that to contribute as we evolve the discussion today. But I'm really pleased to be here. Just to add that I have a singing bowl here, and often online I'll ring a singing bowl at the beginning of our meetings to harmonize that meditation, and just to name that my sense of it is that as we connect in meditation in that beautiful space, we're actually reaching and connecting our energy fields together. And I also have a sense of that growing expansion of empathy on the planet just by the very nature of us meeting with this intention. So I just want to name that too.
Oh,
thank you. That's me.
I'm always touched just being in your presence with you, so it really means a lot to me, Karen.
Me too, and thank you.
Would someone else like to go? You need to do your microphone unmute, I think.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My name is Felicia Mariels, Silver Moon Dolphin, and I've been a transformationist for about 25, 30 years, and empathy is definitely part of the work that I do, but reawakening people's essence of who they really are before any wrongdoing ever lands on them, to reacquaint them with the wholeness and the innocence, wisdom that they really are, is the mainstay of the work that I do. The reason why I feel this is so important to empathy is because empathy is actually the quality of a person being able to be at one with another, not to walk in their shoes, but to actually be them, to feel them. And that's very difficult for people to do in a dualistic world. So learning the skills about how to actually be within yourself, and that idea that you were talking about, Karen, about the masculine, feminine, marrying those two things together, and also marrying both your mind and your heart together, so that you're in a oneness field. There's no possibility for you to have an argument inside yourself. So you come from a place of undivided attention to someone else. So there's no issues inside you, and so you're more likely to be able to hold space for another person and for whatever it is that they're going through, without it triggering you in any way, without bringing up any kinds of opinions or judgments or anything like that. It's not that it's neutral. It's just a real place of love, unconditional love. And so I must admit that I do get a little bit frustrated about how you bring people together in the energy of empathy when they don't know who they are. I mean, I know there's going to be volunteers, and you're going to have people who have issues. But those people who are volunteers, I believe they need to be in that, or be capable of being in that place of oneness where they're fully guided with a unified field in themselves, so that they're fully available for anything that happens. And I would say that that feeling of safety and comfort and kindness and that quiet, grounded peace is the kind of invitation that I would like to help people create as volunteers, so that when somebody steps in an occupied empathy tent, that they actually feel the sacredness of that space. They feel so like they belong there. Yeah, this is going to be okay. And the likelihood then, I feel, that when they're received this way, that it'll actually open the centers of their empathy, both for themselves and also for the person that's listening to them as a new person. So I'm really feeling as though my calling is to train volunteers how to be at one in themselves, so they're available for empathy.
Okay, thank you. Katya?
Wow, I'm just taking in everything you guys just said. Partially, honestly, for selfish reasons, I'm looking for a community that wants to practice being in this space more often, as well as to help spread that to more people. I'm finishing a master's degree in psychology right now, and a lot of times there's this need to divide being therapeutic professionally and being therapeutic in life, and I really don't feel that that divide needs to happen, and I want to be living therapeutically and to be helping people to do that for each other. And I really like what you said, Karen, about that boldness of being able to do that. It does take a lot of courage to sit with somebody and to give them your heart and your mind at the same time. And so I'm just really excited to participate and to support however I can.
Okay, thank you. So we had all those intentions. If they work for everyone, we'll light our empathy candle to just kind of hold those intentions. Does that work? And Karen, you said you had some kind of a sound ball. Is that something you can actually play to begin with? How does that, would that be something we can actually do as well?
I do, and I wonder how Google Hangouts will hold the vibration of the sound of it.
Yeah.
But I can give it a go while you do the candle,
Okay.
Edwin, if you like.
Nice.
How do you receive it? Is it coming through as a clear bell, or is it coming
Little bit.
through in weight?
Just a little bit.
Do well.
Okay.
Nice vibrations. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so I thought we would just have sort of an emergent dialogue, unless you have, actually, Karen, I know you're a pretty good facilitator. You do a lot of facilitation. Unless you have other ideas, or anyone else has other ideas, that we could just start with some dialogue around things that are coming up and just see what emerges. Tomorrow.
I do have a suggestion.
Okay.
I wanted to respond to your email and offer you some reflection and some empathy with where you find yourself. And I don't know if the circumstances have changed, but I remember reading that at the moment you don't have some collaborators to carry the table and the setup in the tent. And when I read that, I was just quite touched and a little saddened that that you don't have that physical support as well as the companionship and the company in Berkeley locally to try that strategy. And yeah, I wondered if you would say a little bit more about that in terms of your hopefulness. And I was also really moved by the sharing round and the intentions round, and I had really about going back and just maybe reflecting or connecting a little bit more with with each person sharing. So they're both alive for me. I would like to, just see how that lands with you, and also I think it would be valuable for people to have a sense of where you're up to as the main facilitator of the movement at the moment.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Well, right now there's one person who had said would meet in Berkeley tomorrow. He's a student, so he would kind of help with that. I had set up sometimes before next to, there's a group of homeless who is protesting the closure of the post office here, and I set up a tent next to them, and so that was nice having some kind of companionship. But I was a little concerned about doing that on a regular basis because they're set up in an us and them situation, and so I'm afraid of like starting an empathy movement that's kind of associated with us and them, and since they're protesting the closure of the post office here, and so kind of pulling away in that sense to be very clear about this is an empathy movement for fostering empathic connection. Everybody is included, and we want dialogue to foster dialogue with everyone. Like I'd even asked the homeless group, would you be willing to do some dialogues with the police? And they said, no way. No, we don't want to talk with them. You know, they're horrible people and stuff like that. So I guess it's kind of like pulling away to be kind of more in that clearly grounded in an empathy foundation. And then finding support, it's been kind of difficult to find people who are willing to take that action. So there is like a sense of aloneness kind of going into it. But my experience was by having set up the tent several times before, that people come by, I start dialoguing with them, and there's a real connection, and I have a certain integrity about it. And at the end of it, I feel like really good. I feel like really, like a lot of times my awareness is like in my head. You know, I feel like kind of struggling. But at the end of it, I feel like very grounded, my awareness being kind of in my full body or in my heart. So there's a real sense of satisfaction that comes. But then there's this initial stepping into it feels kind of painful, you know, without that support. So that's kind of part of the dynamics of where I find myself. And I guess I'm hoping that you kind of do, it kind of grows by doing. You know, it's too much just planning or whatever. You know, I can't wait for that. It's got to be, people will see it and then they'll either be attracted to it or not. So that's kind of how I'm kind of seeing it. I'm kind of wondering how that lands with you or what comes up for anybody.
Yeah, I am moved to reflect that I hear sort of an experience for you in first an idea that it's best to get out there and just be there and be doing it to evolve something. So I hear that as an idea of a strategy for you that works because it gets you out there and gets you doing it. And the second part I hear is that it's transformative for you, that even though sometimes you can turn up feeling quite, well, some concern about how your alliances might be formed that don't serve the ultimate context of empathy being inclusive, but also concern about just physically being without a lot of support. But that once you get into the process of connecting with people, that your whole being starts to come into alignment of purpose, is what I hear. It's something about being fully in your purpose that is so intensely gratifying, satisfying, enlivening, and peaceful for you that it makes all the risks worthwhile.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, you've really heard it.
I wonder how it is for the others, what they've heard too. Felicia, is there anything that you would add back to Edwin that you heard?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Edwin, I feel a real heaviness, almost a sense that I would cry if I could, if it was all right to just let it go here. That that what I hear from you is something that I hear from other people as well, who really feel they have a purpose in their life, and it is for the betterment of others, for us all. And what I feel is determination not to let anything get in your way, that you are decided that you're going to do it. But at the same time, there's an evolutionary aspect of that, a desire in you to be joined, to create community. And I really feel that it isn't only for the company, it's for the next phase of it. You know, like something is about ready to be birthed, and you're just feeling like like your baby's overdue here, right? Anytime you could just have something new birthed into the world, and so, okay, so I feel the word is waiting, that something inside you is waiting for others. And so what I wanted to say is I really truly have felt that way myself, and I wanted to say when I began to empathize with myself for the thing that Thomas Hubble says about being a pioneer, nothing new in this world is ever created by somebody who's doing the same thing. So the pioneers of this world are actually creating a practice that has not yet emerged in the world. And so when you're the prow in the boat, the way you have to cut through the water and take all the waves that are coming and so on, whatever weather happens. I just wanted to say to you that that the empathy that I would like to create today with all of us, especially for you, Edwin, because you're really making a call for this, is to grow up the idea of empathy out of the place where it's not fully manifested as yet, to create that kind of vision that we walk into. It feels like we're kind of meeting up against something, and I'm really feeling as though, for me, I would say something in me is getting in the way of inviting that to me. And that surely must be a part of learning how to empathize with your passions and your purpose and so on, that there's evolutionary things that happen inside people that maybe they're not quite ready for, and you're calling for it, and it feels very awkward and you don't even know the words to say or whatever. So I'm empathizing with the evolutionary steps that persons who are being called to serve in this world, that they have to actually step through some kind of an illusion, some kind of thing that keeps them from being fully realized. I'm empathizing with that right now.
Wow, thank you. How is that for you to hear, Edwin?
Yeah. For me, it was hearing, it's kind of stepping into something new that wants to be born, sort of a new emergent experience. It's like, what is this new something that wants to be born, more of an empathic, emergent, and kind of being present with that, you know, kind of holding and kind of going up to it and being present with what will emerge. And so that's what I was hearing. And how am I with it? It's supportive for me to have just the connection here and even be having this dialogue. So, and be hearing and be talking about this. So just your presence alone is just feels very supportive and grounding and touching for me. So that's the other thing that comes up.
Yeah, what I want to say, Edwin, is I feel like there's not words for the places we want to go. I feel that we're creating a new game. It's like it's almost like in the area of mystic, in a way, that it hasn't really landed or hasn't formed. It's like a mist that's almost there. We can taste it and kind of smell it, and we can feel it, but it hasn't really fully landed. And I think that awkwardness of manifestation or creation or invention or whatever, just at that moment, you know, when the spark is about to ignite, there's I think I want to say that I want to empathize with the anticipation that's inside persons who want to see a new world, who want to see a change, who envision something more beautiful for everyone. And when you carry that kind of vision in the world, it takes a certain amount of keying in to undiscovered parts about our own selves in order to have that emerge in other people. So if it's going to be, it's up to me, that kind of a thing, you know. And so I'm not saying that I have the answer, but I feel like I'm getting closer to the idea of what it feels like not to be fully realized in your passion. And I'm empathizing with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is an emergent quality to empathy in the sense as we empathize with each other, is to be able to hold a space to see what emerges through that empathy, and it can be scary. I remember there's a article I read by Carl Rogers. He said some people don't want to step into empathy because you don't know what will emerge. You know, it's like kind of have to hold a space for that. But one thing is, it does seem to me that the empathy itself, having an empathic presence, is something that's quite solid in and of itself. To have empathic relationships, connections with other, in itself is very grounding and orienting to me. So that's something I feel like is something that even if there's a lot of change kind of going on, having kind of these empathic connections with others is very grounding for me. What I do wish is, kind of from a practical standpoint, is to have that local support, you know, in Berkeley. But I did have some of that. You know, I've set up the tent, and I remember when I set up the last time, I had barely set it up, and two young women came by and said, "Hey, is this empathy for animals too?" And I said, "Sure. You know, it's empathy for animals. Bring a table, and you can set up here, and you can advocate for empathy for animals." And the one woman grabbed me, gave me a big hug, like first thing, and you know, kind of was just very excited about it. And I've had quite a few people actually be interested in empathy for animals. So I'm kind of imagining at some point we can actually make an empathy for animals day, And I'm sure a lot of supporters, would come out around that. So I see a lot of things that could happen, but it's finding that core team, just kind of that handful of people, that core. And so this is kind of like a transition. This is really supportive here, just to have have you here to dialogue with and connect with, and but it would be really nice to have that local team. But I'm hoping it'll come together. I guess I'm also wondering what Katya, if you have any thing that's been coming up for you.
I guess what I'm hearing right now is just sort of that sense of swimming upstream a little bit, but that there are moments, glimpses that fuel a continuing movement. And even though sometimes it can be challenging, that you do see the moments, and they do help to replenish. I think that's it.
Yeah, there definitely is sort of something that comes back after, so it isn't all, struggle. There is a lot of positive. Something I'm seem to be itching to share is I got my bullhorn. It's got the Occupy Empathy bullhorn here. Just, I don't know. It's just, I don't know, for some reason I wanted to kind of share that. So just came from Amazon today. So, I will be heard if if need be. I'll just be talking to people, but do have the empathy bullhorn.
In that respect, Edwin, I would really love to hear you crystallize, if you can, or what's it like for you now, about the message that you want to put out through that horn, like to actually have a connection to what people are buying into, for want of a better description. Like, is that enough of the question, or would you like me to articulate it?
No, that's I can probably go with that. It's well, I have that was actually on the list, was a flyer. So I've got what I do is I've got a Occupy Empathy flyer, which is we're all in it together, 100%, no more us and them. And it's how might we design an Occupy Empathy movement to bring everyone together. So that's what I'm advocating for. Is just this is just kind of the first prototype. I just went to Stanford. They have the Karen, about the human-centered design, and there's a design process called human-centered design, and it's also called empathic design in some quarters. So it's a process how you do innovation, and I went there for a 2-day free workshop, and they gave out I don't know where it is right now, but it's the empathy field guide. So as you're doing design work, I really got to show it to you. It's kind of, if I can find it. I don't want to dig around for it, but it's a field guide, and it's like 18-page field guide, and we did a design project on how we could redesign the food system at Stanford, and there was maybe over 100 people, and we broke into small teams of 4 to 5, 5 to 6 in a team, and we had a team leader, And then we went around the campus and we're interviewing people around the food design, like how could we design it to make it more interesting. And we had the empathy field guide. So I kind of see this very similar. That's really a design process. There's a whole design process to kind of to build on, to really do this prototype and then empathize with people and say, hey, how does this work for you? What's coming up for you? Which is actually what I could be asking the three of you, is here it is. Here's the Occupy Empathy. It's this prototype of bringing people together. We want to bring people together. We want to bring the police and the protesters, together to dialogue. I just stopped over at that tent for the homeless and was talking to the organizer there, and he wants to do dialogues between the homeless and they call them the ambassadors. They're kind of like people who are working for the shop owners to kind of keep things clean. They do a little bit of little bit of the, I don't know, what would you call it, a little bit of the, they can be a little authoritarian and kind of conflict with the homeless. So I talked to him and I said I would talk with them about doing empathy circles. So I'm starting to have these little dialogues, to do that, bringing people together in empathy circles. So people come by, I give them a flyer. A lot of people just walk by, don't want anything, are kind of, into their own world. Other people are kind of interested in what's going on. Some people are really excited about it. And so there's that part. Before, there'd be maybe if 3 or 4 people come together, I say, oh, would you like to do an empathy circle? I can show you how an empathy circle, it's on the flyer, we do empathy circles. So it's I've actually done about 4 empathy circles. We sit down and I just show them how to do empathic reflective listening, which we could do in this group too. And I remember, I did it with some of the homeless, and it's really hard to get them to reflect, to get into the reflection. They're so used to projecting, but we, they kind of get into it a little bit. But in other people, they see the empathy sign, and I remember one person was saying, after we were doing this, this is so wonderful, just kind of really being into it. So that was kind of cool. So I guess that's the arc. Is I say let's bring people together. We're advocating for empathy for everyone. Would you like some empathic listening? I can do some reflective listening with you. If a crowd gathers, I say let's do an empathy circle, and I kind of teach people to do empathy circles. And then I'm offering mediation. And so there's already kind of this mediation kind of getting started. So that's kind of like the arc. Oh.
It's occurring for me as a movement to encourage people into the design process. So it's an open inquiry of how to connect all of us in empathy. So I hear the connection to design, which the design process I hear that's very strongly alive for you, and I am inspired by that. I love the human-centered design, empathic design process in creating solutions. Yeah, sorry, just in finding ways forward. Yeah, to hold this as a design issue, and then I hear opportunities that are presenting themselves for you to be in research, really, to be out in the field, gathering the data, having the qualitative feedback about how much people really love it, having the flexibility to move into circle as well as reflective listening process, and seeing opportunities even between groups where you might be able to facilitate some empathic process for people who aren't seeing issues the same way, where there's some sort of power over. So what occurs for me is to have a second round with you. Now that there's a clarity in your communicating this request for us to participate in the design challenge, really, is what I'm hearing. To support the unfolding of a clarity about engaging people in local communities as well as globally in a dialogue around holding empathy as core to our humanity, holding empathy as a process that, as Felicia was saying, that really brings us home to ourselves and then enables us to move towards the challenges that we face as human beings from a place of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that there's some benefits, and I'm guessing you do too, and I'm guessing, you know, people that are connected to this conceptually will also see benefits of providing the container for how to get this done. And so I'd love to throw it back to you again and just say, with the design process that you have at hand, what would you imagine some of the benefits of causing or inspiring those that resonate with this mission of empathy and connection? What would you imagine the benefits are in the participation of that?
Oh, so kind of what the benefits are for people who would be attracted or involved in that?
Yes, because what's alive for me is this curiosity that you may connect with 1,000 people in the tent. You know, over time you might have connected with quite a number of people who all really celebrate their experience with you, and then they walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that part of what you're hoping is that by the experience of what you provide, that they can then take that experience back into their home environment, into their workplaces, into their lives, and have a sense of skill set around bringing empathy into their own lives. And I have this curiosity about tracking that, about support, having an ongoing support system that actually keeps them connected to you and allows the feedback as well as, how did that go? Mm-hmm. You know, you had an experience with us. How do you imagine that might go when you go home or when you get to work? Or can you imagine applying what you've experienced here with us? Would you be willing to be a part of an ongoing inquiry, and would you be willing to give us feedback? Could we catch up with you, you know, once a month? Or, you know, maybe it's about building some technology systems to be able to enhance that sense of connection and ongoing relationship. So I guess that's where I'm seeing, what benefits are there alive for you about people connecting with this idea, this design process? What can they take away with them to go and apply in their real lives?
Mm-hmm. So you're wondering, like, if people come to this, they're going to be involved, there's going to be a kind of a connection, a relationship. How does the relationship continue afterwards, as well as how does it affect them in their lives at home or work or wherever they are? So kind of looking at what that would be like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the one thing is the, you know, I see here we've had all kinds of protests in Berkeley, you know, with groups going, shutting down the freeways, you know, massive freeways with, you know, thousands and thousands of people being affected, being stuck, you know, out on the freeways for hours, and this going on for, you know, 4 or 5 days in a row. So there's this conflict that's happening. And it's becoming very polarized as an us and them conflict. So what I'm looking for is to put into the space an alternative, which is an empathic, that if to advocate for empathy in that polarized dynamic. So just by having the tent up there, it's really bold letters and signs. I don't know if you've seen it. So people see it from all around. So it's like pretty much empathy. You know, it's like, so it's something like 16,000 people go through that station every day. So that's, you know, a lot of students, a lot of people in Berkeley seeing that, and their neurons are being engaged by, hey, what's empathy? What's this all about? So those neural networks that, you know, get engaged, so people are thinking about it. How to create engagement? I have been looking at another handout, which is a form, which I saw that you filled out, Karen, the online version. This is how we would like to be involved. You know, I'd like to get listening. I'd like to offer listening, and kind of really break down the steps. Make it little baby steps of how people can actually get involved in this, and then like be offering. And maybe you saw the last one was, you know, offer empathy training in our organization. So if there's churches or community organizations, we can go and actually offer either, you know, empathy listening, empathy circles, you know, NVC, human-centered design, this whole spectrum of empathy building processes. You know, that there can be a kind of a training for that. The empathy circle process is one of the most effective, simple tools I know for, you know, I've just seen it work kind of miracles in my own family. So there's all kinds of processes like that, as well as creating a space to bring in other communities who have empathy building processes, you know, be it the restorative justice community, or have it be the NVC community, or design community, the, you know, empathy for animals community, you know, whatever community that there's a space. There's a person who does the Berkeley Arts program. She was interested in bringing dance, you know, so I can just imagine if you have an hour. Felicia, you do sort of the shared consciousness training, as I understand it, right? So emergent shared consciousness. So people like that can come and actually maybe offer classes so that it can become like a happening, a place, and hopefully build a community that's like ongoing. Like, hey, this is so much fun. Let's really, and this is really working. Let's take it to the next step. You know, so. Those are some things that are emerging.
I'm so delighting in your enthusiasm, your energy, the spark that's alive in you now as you share that, Edwin. And I really connect with this sense of having hubs, or, you know, places that are where a space is created where those offerings and the variety of how empathy lives can turn up and share. So I'm really excited by that vision, and I can imagine that it would be lovely to have hubs in different regional locations, and so was one of the conversations that came out of the NVC online conference last year, talking about developing hubs and then smaller groups again, like pods, so that people could be getting together in their homes with just people in their neighborhood, or, you know, so that we can actually imagine a structuring for the support of empathy engagement. So I'm actually hearing a longing for that structural support for the vision, and I'm also hearing, yes, something that suggests that the longing for greater clarity too on the enrollment message. You know, how do we reach people that when you're seeing it, there's an us and them idea occurring, when their freeway is blocked, or when the protesters are out in great numbers. And what you would enjoy to see is the choicefulness of bringing empathy to their pain and empathic dialogue to the resolution of the pain. So, and what I see when you talk about having the tent in the middle of this sort of intense conflict is a brave lone voice. Truly speaking for empathy when people are already engaged in their story to such an extent, and they're en masse, so they actually are supporting each other's point of worldview. Like, that's them and they're wrong, and this is us and we're holding this point of view, and they reinforce it by sitting in their polarization. And what I hear is when you bring forward the idea of the voice of empathy, I hear the longing for clarity and the question, how does that choicefulness arrive in those sort of circumstances? And I'm having a moment of sort of realization myself that working to sort of on the connection of the community, of people in the hubs, the local hubs and the pods, working to connect in their locations and then together like this from around the world, having a sense of that network, actually we become then a mass number. So instead of it's one lone voice in the middle of two big polarized groups who have a very clear distinction around how their worldview is, we become that, a sort of energetic collection of people standing together to be a larger group standing for empathy. And as I connect to that from a strategic point of view, I can see the enjoyment of spending my energies in that direction, so that as the critical mass gets reached of people who are already really switched on to this, really resonating this enjoyment, this frequency, this sort of passion, that as we bring those people together and create critical mass, that those polarized groups will see us. That those people within those polarized groups, if and when they are ready, will come towards us. Because being in polarization isn't going to feel effective anymore. And being in empathic resonance, the things that you're speaking of that I see as the benefits of surrendering to creative process, allowing love to become the source of what's getting created, because there is such groundedness in the truth of who we are and how much care and affection we get connected to through empathy, that we can co-create from there a much more sustainable, in fact thriving reality that other people will be just drawn to almost unconsciously, because that's what their body actually needs. The nutrition that empathy brings is like finding water in the desert, in my humble opinion.
So you're seeing having this empathic connection like we're doing here, and having larger network of empathic connection, that creates kind of an energy, and that actually will draw people to it when they see that as an alternative. And if we can build and hold and maintain that people will be just drawn to it. And we can do it in our communities and wherever we are.
Yeah, thank you, Edwin. I take a deep breath at being heard, and a sense of purpose in that for me that feels very close to my own, about connecting the individuals who are already resonating this consciousness to create that critical mass of support. And so, yeah, that's really alive for me. But I'm wondering how the sharing has landed around the circle. I'm wanting feedback, if you're willing, Kasia and Felicia.
Mm. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I too got very excited listening to Karen speaking because she picked up on your empathetically picked up on your zest and for life. That the energy grew, and what I witnessed was like an energy of permission started opening up. Uh, um, I feel the embrace of wanting to support you, Edwin, and also the energy of invitation. Meaning that there are people waiting for this. I mean, they're just shimmering there, right? They don't really know what to do, and the alternative to them and us has not been really presented to very many people. Although what I was picturing on your tent were actually posters. They're round and they're laminated and say empathy happened here. You have a picture of a person and what they already did. So in other words, there's been empathetic things going on all over the world. There are people who are producing wonderful things with empathy right now as we're speaking. So that there's an idea that they would be joining a movement, not beginning one. Because the world could not possibly even spin on its axis if we didn't have empathy working all the time every day. Right? So, but the fact that we're using empathy as a solution-based perspective and an environment, that's a very different thing. I mean, there are people who just naturally do that all the time, right? And so perhaps if what we could do is find some relevant within your city even. Who do people feel are empathetic, solution-based persons that have actually made some inroads, even if they're little, you know, like a children's reading circle or maybe support for immigrants or finding decent housing or whatever. There's got to be some people who have just been stalwart with empathy over the years. And I think that because human beings are like any other creature, they need imprinting in the nature of humanness. They need to say, oh, other people are doing this, right? This is the way things can get done. Yeah, that's great. It's not them and us. We have to be with a lot of people that are us in order to make some changes, right? So gravitating towards like-minded and peaceful solution-based persons, enthusiastic persons too, not angry. We need to take that anger and kind of turn it around, because if anger had an opportunity, it would be enthusiastic. That's what I'm feeling. So I was wondering whether there wasn't a very inexpensive way to make people feel as though they're building empathy with their ideas. To have a tree that with different colored pieces of paper, and they write down their vision or their idea or something, right? And when they start to see how many people have a motivation for bringing change in a peaceful way, that kind of visual thing builds momentum as well. And you could even do something like I throw all these ideas into a jar at the end of the day, and we pull out one, and that's what we have a circle about. Right? So it's like a lottery. You get to be heard around your idea or whatever, right? And And if you're not from here, or if you have to leave or whatever, if you feel okay about leaving a phone number or whatever, right, on the back of the paper where you can get in touch, or whether you'd like a phone call about this idea. But a way, I think that what you were talking about, the idea of continuing dialogue or connection beyond that tent, right, so that they feel like they have dropped their penny in your space. Right, and the ring are going out. I think also that idea about empathy, if you ask people, when did you feel an empathetic moment in your life? Who's been empathetic to you? And you know, it's interesting because I have made that approach with people, and they may be whining and bitching and complaining, and then they start to defend. Oh, I've had empathy in my life. Come on, who do you think I am? You don't think I don't have some empathy in my life? This person did that and that and that, and then they suddenly start to soften, and it brings out the empathy in them, that they are recognizing an occasion, a person, or a moment in their life that was an empathetic connection. So it's almost like that. Well, if they had an empathetic experience, or if they had an experience of being empathized with, why couldn't that happen again? Why couldn't we direct?
So what was I was hearing? I didn't know. Karen, were you saying you needed to leave, or was that a?
I was responding to Katya that she had said goodnight to us.
Oh.
She was excusing herself, and I had just wanted to let her know that it was lovely to connect and thank her for being with us. And it's actually about 3:20 here, my time in Australia, and I'm wondering about being able to, well, just to inquire how you might imagine closing the circle today and what time you might enjoy that. I'm imagining that in the next 10 minutes I would like to sort of contribute to the closing circle if that's possible, and I still have a few jobs to do this afternoon, including supporting my daughter to get her school supplies. So yeah, if it would work for you, that would be wonderful.
We had it for another at half after the hour is what we had said, so we could. I did want to reflect. I was hearing Felicia. It was. You're saying that there is already this empathy out there in society, in the community. It's what keeps the world going around. And then it sounded like you're going into like different, maybe strategies or approaches for kind of dialoguing with people and how to have those dialogues. Is that kind of the?
Well, what I'm trying to say is that we're not inventing empathy.
Yeah, it's already there.
Yeah, that we're not inventing empathy, but the idea of using empathy for problem solving and designing life might be something new. And so those persons in, say, can you talk about somebody who might have been empathetic, who was very heartfelt in your life, that really put themselves out there in your community or in your family? Could you maybe share that with me so that they get in touch with the experience of empathy, even if they're having a tough time in the moment, that they actually do know what that is, and once you get them in touch with their experience, they actually feel it again, and they feel part of it. It doesn't just feel like an idea.
So it's a way for people to kind of connect with the empathy that they have to make it more real, as well as to show that empathy has has a creativity or a problem-solving.
It has roots in our
human. So okay. I would say that that's a little bit what I'm seeing with the Occupy Empathy, that it just needs a flag to be planted. It's like, just a metaphor of like in a battle or a war. Not that I don't really like that metaphor, but you kind of plant the flag and then people can rally around it. So in a sense, the Occupy Empathy is just the flag for those people who already have all this empathy to kind of rally around and come together to create that energy. So I see that as a large part of what it is, that nobody's out there planting the flag to the banner. And, you know, if we can plant the flag in our community and attract those people who already value this, it gives us a kernel to kind of grow. It's a little bit what's here. You know, you all are, you know, I just kind of planted the flag, and you've kind of, oh, okay, let's rally around this empathy flag, and I'm sure you do that in your communities too. So, anyway, I just wanted to add that. How to, was there anything else, Karen, maybe did you want to add?
Yeah, when I hear the analogy of planting a flag as a way of creating a point of focus that people can rally around. Yeah, when I remember requesting some more clarity around the message, for me, that's the flag. A really sort of the clear message and the clear request. It might be something that can be duplicated locally in different areas and could rally local groups. And there's certainly some wonderful examples of creating a movement and how to do that. And I might, I'll have a look for some resources and I'll share them with the Google group, because there's some wonderful, inspiring stories of how to create movement. I'm thinking of Jonathan Fields, his work. I'm thinking of Scott Dinsmore and his work. And these are people who've gone out and really devoted themselves to understanding how to raise a movement. Seth Godin in his own in the sort of area of creating influence. So there's different perhaps methodologies or pathways that we could imagine going forward in creating the movement. But what I'm really connected to in this moment is the clarity of the message, even if it is a design proposal, that at this point of the evolution, that the clarity of that message and the clarity of the request will impact its capacity to move, to actually have resonance and for people to say yes to. So that feels like something that I'm enjoying the sort of well, my own sense of clarity, that feels really important.
Yeah.
Do you feel that we're getting there to that request? That I was just wondering, how do you feel we are on getting towards that? I'm hearing you're wanting a clarity of what the request is, and that having that clarity of the request will help with the creation of the direction.
For myself, no, it's still emerging.
Okay.
And I guess it depends on which strategy is adopted. If the strategy is to focus on the growing of critical mass and the growing of also hubs of activity that are resourced, then I can imagine that some sort of framework, or in the old paradigm it might have been called a business model, but some sort of framework of creating viability for those hubs and creating sort of how to belong, how to contribute, how to see that hub being manifest, being created, being something very real and tangible that people can approach. And so in the first instance, I see in Berkeley that you have the tent, and you have a very strong vision of being able to create a hub in Berkeley that really supports and attracts people to a message and a mission. And so I guess I would just like to leave it as an alive question.
Okay.
How do we all imagine coming together to clarify this message and the request so that in your hub in Berkeley and in Australia and in other regions, or, that it has a sense of traction with people.
So how do we imagine coming together to clarify, what was that? I was just writing it down.
It's really what message do we want to rally around? That's so that it's really concise, it's clear, it's doable, it's specific, people know how to engage in the first instance, and out of that will grow emergent possibilities. But I think that to engage people in the first yes is about engaging them in that sort of first participation, so that there's a clear yes alive in them. And for a clear yes to be alive in them, there needs to be a sort of a clear message and request.
Is that could it be a bit like a design challenge? Like with the design challenge, you set to your, a clear challenge, and then it can change over time, but at least it kind of gets you started. You start working towards it and start gathering, start empathizing with people to see how it really works for them and how it addresses it, and then maybe we kind of redesign it so that it kind of addresses people's needs more deeply.
I'm really excited about that. That's a great idea, applying the design process to this as a challenge. And you mentioned that Occupy Empathy is not necessarily the final name for this project. So I'm curious about that too. I think that there's the possibility of opening up our own sense of brand around empathy because I think there's more of a story behind the masculine and the feminine and aspects of empathy, and maybe we want to share a story. Maybe that's one of the strategies, is sharing a story about our vision for empathy and our hope that everyone on the planet gets to experience what it is to be in deep empathy. So maybe there's a mission statement, something like that. But the naming and the message, I think it would be great to have a design challenge around that. So that's inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess we just keep the dialogue going. We'll be doing kind of prototyping, or kind of the initial design challenge on here, which I'm not real happy with, but how might we design an Occupy Empathy movement to bring everyone together? And it could certainly be more succinct and clearer, but it's kind of just a starting point. And
it's very heartful, Edwin, and I really hear it. It's quite clear in that you're speaking to Berkeley area and saying, I'd like to create a hub where empathy lives, 100% of the time. And would you like to come and enjoy empathy? Would you be willing to commit half an hour a week? Would you be willing to join a network online where we can, if you can't turn up regularly, you can check in? And would you be, I have alive some strategies around empathy exchange and being able to facilitate that in the hubs, but also in between those hubs, so that there's a greater sense of connection. So I'm delighting in the meeting today. I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling grateful. Yeah, I'm feeling really supported being in your company, both of you, and and I hold an enormous amount of hope alive and trust alive that this will emerge just by us showing up. It's lovely to try and get strategic as well, but our hearts are showing up, and that's half of the challenge, I think, is just being willing to show up.
Might be 99% of it, just be present and show up. I feel that too. Yeah. Yeah, I feel very grateful for everyone showing up, and I feel a sense of spaciousness and calmness too from from being together and connecting. So it's I'm feeling an energy to propel me forward tomorrow. So spaciousness. There was a sense of a little bit of the dread of kind of going against that aloneness and coldness, and I feel a warmer heart, taking a warmer heart with me. So look forward to our next ongoing meeting to keep that energy going and addressing these questions too, like getting the message and being clear. Because I have some hope too. I guess I'm very grateful for the clarity that you bring and that sense of wanting clarity, and so I'm very grateful for that too, and for Felicia for your wanting that emergent empathic space too, and to hold that. So thank you for that.
I have a question to ask you. Is the word cultural creatives a word that you use around Berkeley?
I haven't heard it for a while. It was kind of being knocked around here I'd heard it, but I haven't heard it as often as before.
Well, I wanted to say that on your poster, calling all cultural creatives, because if they haven't heard it for a while, and they know who they are, they know who they are. So artists and dancers and poets and all that kind of thing, people that would make your tent fun, right? And just say booking. What day do you get together on the tent?
It's kind of open. It's starting tomorrow, so I'm kind of gearing up to doing more on a daily basis or every couple days, or kind of see how it grows.
Well, welcoming booking of culture creative expressions around the topic of empathy, and just see what the heck happens. I mean, because listen, artists, all they want to do is just do art. They don't necessarily need to play. They just want to play music. They just want people. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. And if it's around the topic of empathy, gosh, well, I think that they would be a huge resource for you to make your tent a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're all invited. When we had our initial empathy tent, we had a table with paper and markers, and people were invited to come and draw their values. What is your most important value? You know, compassion, love, caring, respect. And then we hung those up all around the tent. So
yeah, that's a great idea. Have you gone, Karen? Has Karen left?
Yeah, she was needing to go, so I guess.
Yeah, she had to go. Yeah, so I really.
We didn't close on time for her. Sorry about that.
I really feel